and welcome to Berlin, Germany, home of the 2019 LEC season. The star-filled roster of G2 Esports is rising up as the new top team in Europe, and tonight they go up against SK Gaming to kick off the week. It'll be interesting to see whether or not SK can stand toe-to-toe with the undefeated G2 Esports. Welcome, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined and already checked by Indiana Frostcrow in black, as well as Andrew Vedius Day. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Is this what we do now?
Yes, I am British and we bow.
We bow. Okay, welcome. That's not quite where I was going to go with it, but whatever. After 2 weeks of action, there's only one undefeated team, as I've mentioned. It's G2. Now, they are followed suit by a host of squads in second, including Misfit, Schalke, Splice, Vitality. It's a pretty competitive middle of the table right now.
Top of the table, Quickshot. They're all fighting for that first place spot right now. Look at that. 3-1 is the scoreline. Each of them kind of losing games to one another, and all waiting for that opportunity to take a shot at the king to try and take that first place spot.
And it's not like G2 haven't had their own few punches and rocked with them. You know, Excel there definitely took a swipe at G2, did draw some blood, but unfortunately weren't able to actually make it count on the scoreboard.
Yeah, definitely the hardest game that G2 has had to win thus far has been against Excel Esports. And I'm going to take a bold statement here. G2 are probably the best team in Europe right now.
I think you're pretty safe in saying things like that, Quickshot.
If you look at their players, they have carries in every single role. They have threats absolutely everywhere. And they are becoming an absolute monster in the eyes of the LEC.
This team is just ridiculous. Just have a look at some of the numbers on your screen. You can see the goal difference at 15, their damage per minute, and note how they're either ranked first or second in every single position. It is absolutely ridiculous how stacked this lineup is, and their ability to get advantages in the early game, their ability to snowball, their flexibility in the draft. This team just seems to have it all.
In traditional sports, there's this idea that sometimes you are just bigger, faster, stronger, better, and you can actually just outrun, wear down your opponent, and beat them through brute force. Now, in esports, obviously, it's not the same athleticism, but I think G2 is probably the closest example of that. They are simply bigger, better, faster, stronger players, and they smash you in the lane phase with their mechanics.
But surely, Frost, there has to be some sort of weakness to that, because if, for example, this team is just simply better pound-for-pound players, where do we see them practicing and developing some of the strategic calls, some of the closer games? You know, that matchup against XL, they were supposed to be bigger, better, faster, scarier, and they almost got punked on, looking pretty daft in terms of how XL nearly took them down.
Until it came to the 1v9 carry by Caps, because he's just entitled because he's that good. No, I understand what you're saying, and that's kind of the big concern. You know, longtime G2 fans, they're going to say, okay, if we think MSI, and if this team makes it...
Try not to.
Exactly. Then suddenly maybe pump the brakes a little bit, because we really haven't seen any sort of strategical or macro depth outside of the creativity in their draft, because they simply haven't been challenged yet. They haven't had to rely on their chessboard strategy to outmaneuver opponents.
And that's one of the big things you look at for G2. You'd like to think that after coming close to losing to XL, they'll look to show more respect to the rest of their opponents. But I like the fact they're being creative in their drafts. They are trying a wealth of different things. And we just have to hope that coming into the later stages of the split, more teams will be able to challenge and rival that level of skill.
I hope so. And right now, one of the teams that's not going to stand up and rival them, one of the teams that was undefeated and maybe as dominant last year's Fnatic. 0-4 after 2 weeks. This is the world finalists. We've said it a whole bunch. They're in last place. They made the roster swaps, as we've already touched on, that keystone, the cornerstone player of Caps. And I am just still flabbergasted that this team seems to be floundering and really struggling to find their feet.
And what's really concerning is that you can't seem to pinpoint exactly where the problems are going wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people looked initially at Nemesis. If you look at Nemesis' numbers, especially in his most recent performance, it was fine. You look at Broxa, maybe you're not getting the same playmaking. Blippo's dying a lot in lane. I think across the board, even Reckless and Hilly having that awful game versus Schalke in that bot lane, I think holistically it's all of Fnatic dropping the ball, which could mean good things that maybe if you just tighten up that synergy, they return to form.
What just surprises me so much about Fnatic is why they don't just rely on what they found so much success with last year. Even though Caps is gone and Nemesis is in place, you should hope to expect that Nemesis can still carry a game.
Yeah.
in Europe, we have so many talented mid laners, and even if Nemesis can't do what Caps did, put resources into him. Be Broxa and the Hillside of last split that enabled that mid laner to do so many fantastic things.
Let's see if they can. Of course, it's 0-4. It's an 18-game regular season. We've talked a lot about the #1 and now the #10 team. Let's also paint a quick light on Origen. Not living up to expectations, the organization history, the names behind the org, as well as the players on the Rift. It's going to be interesting to see what Origen can do to bounce back, because they should be performing better, especially after they took Fnatic down. They gave us a lot of hope in terms of what their level could be.
I mean, it feels like Origen have all the right ideas. We've complimented their drafts. We think that they have the right style, but it's just not executing. And frankly, it's almost the complete opposite problem that Fnatic have. If Fnatic are dealing with those growing pains of finding that synergy, you know, reinventing the wheel or going back to their old style, Origen simply just are mechanically failing across the board. Solo deaths everywhere.
So listen, we started the day by taking a look at the standings. We've talked at the top of the table. We've looked at the bottom of the table. Vedius, I'm going to turn to you now and ask you to dive in a little bit into these teams competing in the upper echelons of LEC.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at some teams in particular. And our first one is Esports. This team fought the current #1 team, G2, with everything that they had, forcing one of the closest games of the split. While their team fighting was strong, unfortunately, Caps was just simply stronger. However, this team exceeded all expectations. And going up against Misfits today, the underdogs cannot afford to be underestimated. Now, our next team to watch is Vitality. The third-place squad from 2018 summer seems to be back, as they dismantled the dominant Misfits. The Italian stallion Jizuke got back on the horse, as his LeBlanc paired up with the classic Attila Draven to cement destruction into their opposition. They take on Origen and Rogue this week and look to keep the gap close from their future opponents G2. The final team to watch is Schalke. With mixed expectations coming into the split, the team ended week 2 in dominant fashion. Their game versus Fnatic was particularly impressive, as Upset and Ignor obliterated Reckless and Hylissang, converting duo kills into explosive team fights, and even a quadra for Upset cements Schalke as another team battling for the top. Their match against Splice later in the day is one that you guys are certainly not going to want to miss.
No, absolutely not. Definitely looking forward to it. And of course, seeing as though we're into week 3, and you know, this is the right time to make broad sweeping statements, I'm going to look at our all-pro team. I asked my 2 analysts to put together their #1 players per role, and the group that we've come together with is Soaz, Maxlor, Caps, Upset, and Ignor. Now, of these players, only Caps was voted in our pre-season pro player poll to be the #1 in his role. So why has everyone else stepped up?
I think it's fair to say, firstly, Caps. I always have to get that out of the way. Best player in Europe, of course, he's going to be in the mid lane. Then the other thing is you maybe look towards the top side. I think there was a lot of competition. For me, Soaz, just holistically across the board, has been so consistent. In his laning phase, and his team fight, and the shot calling, he's just kind of that intangible all package.
But I do know that you had a couple question marks around that bot lane quick shot.
I don't. To me, they're the best bot lane in Europe. And you throw that at me. You weren't that hyped about Ignor.
Yeah, okay, I'm definitely trying to move it away.
Don't try to push your flame onto me now.
Yeah, I was very skeptical of Ignor coming in. I didn't think he had a great performance last year. I felt like he could only play one style of champion, but pairing him up with Upset, they seem to be phenomenal team fighters as a duo. They seem more than capable of building their own leads in lane consistently, and I have just been so impressed with what this duo has been able to achieve that right now, I think they sit at the top.
Yeah, and before you at us, this was a very competitive and close race. It simply really was, for me, at least that Fnatic game that put Ignor and Upset over the threshold.
Over the threshold, okay. At Froskurin, at Riot Vedius, where is Gorilla? Where is Cabochard? Where is Jizuke? Actually, here's a better one. Where the hell is Jankos? Why is it Maxlor over Jankos?
So for me, I think Jankos is a fantastic jungler. Don't get me wrong, guys. However, I feel that based on how they've been drafting and how he fits into his team, he doesn't need to provide the same level of value that Maxlor does. Maxlor just seems to be the complete package for me. He consistently ganks early game. He's always trying to be active on the map. He's very aware of his win conditions and regularly plays towards them. And I just feel that he brings the entire package of what you could want from a jungler.
And for me, I mean, Maxlor is good, but I'm still like, Team Vitality are still missing from this list. The fact that it's made up of 3 teams, Misfits, G2, and Schalke, that's basically us saying that Schalke is the 3rd best team in the league, or kind of leaning that way. When Team Vitality took down Misfits, and again, it was super close. Names like Jizuke did come up, but unfortunately, Jizuke is competing with someone like Caps.
I mean, that's so difficult. And, you know, as a segue, the really big question at week 3, day 1, after 20 games on the LEC is who... No. Why is Caps the LEC Spring Split MVP already?
It's very early in the split,
but
quick shot. We can't be making statements on MVP.
I just did.
He's a really good player, but we can't quite say most valuable yet. Let's slow down a little bit quick.
I mean, my prompter just says Caps.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, written, it's on Froskurin's prompter. Look, we talked a lot about Soaz and Maxlor. They're not only making waves on the Rift, but this week they also sat down with Drakus and Froskurin on Euphoria, where Maxlor shared his opinions on European top laners.
I think so as Wanda Alfari for sure.
I agree.
It's just after these three, it just becomes a bit wishy-washy.
Do you rank Cabochard highly?
He's very easy to gank.
Okay, so we'll say no. Soft no. Whippo?
He's also very easy to gank.
Warlip?
Oh, I haven't tried ganking him, but like for sure.
I like how he based everything on like how easy you can gank him. You know?
The issue is he plays Vigichachi and Warlip play Poppy. So like, and Poppy's really hard to gank. That's the problem. So even if they play like monkeys, which they both do, it's still very difficult to punish these champs.
Okay, so we have some explaining to do.
You do?
I make good on my bets. Trevor, you'll make good on yours. Your time will come.
I will.
Euphoria bet. I lost to Vedius. His power ranking was superior. I'd like to formally apologize to Misfits. You are superior. And now I'm dressed as a judge, and I've done my civic
Because
duty.
you are being judged, right?
Yes.
She's being judged for her poor preseason power ranking.
I'm Hufflepuff.
And of course, it is week 3, so this is definitely the time to be gloating about this. You guys can catch the full episode of Euphoria on YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, as well as Spotify. So go check it out, as well as all the back catalog. Now, let's see what we got coming up tonight as we count down to week 3 of the LEC Spring Split. We'll be taking a couple of the games. Where are my eyes falling? I think Fnatic versus Rogue, the 2 undefeated teams in the league. Somebody's picking up their first win. And it might be Rogue's best chance.
It could very well be. I'm really excited. You know, it's always fun to watch the battle at the bottom, which I don't think many people would expect to say from Fnatic.
Not.
But also, Spice versus Schalke. That one, to me, is probably one of the closest matches of the day. I was really struggled to predict who would come out on top, and I cannot wait for that one to kick off.
I mean, I frankly got a great day. I get to cast all 3 of these games. Probably the most exciting Rogue game, possibly that they might have all split, is between them and Fnatic right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned predictions, and of course we have to turn because just like the T1000, the stats bot has risen from the ashes to terminate the competition in the race for superior analyst. Let's take a look what we've predicted for tonight's games, and I'm taking a look at the predictions so far. StatsBot is winning, and StatsBot is calling Schalke over Splice. No, Splice over Schalke, the only different one. I'd like to welcome...
You're coming for my crown?
I'm
You think that the official's gone, you can just take it? No! This is my kingdom! I will be the king! Get out of here! That's it! Walk away! Walk away, StatsBot!
You can yell all you want, he's beating you,
For
Vedius.
now, he's predicted Splice, I predicted Schalke. The gap will close today! Get out of here!
Your time comes, StatBot.
Stupid
I know
bot.
Froskuren really wanted to pit StatsBot, and it didn't come
I can't believe you picked Vedius over me!
Because he sees who his real rival is.
I'm so
Excuse
sorry.
me, sir.
Okay, so listen, there's our predictions. You guys at home, make sure you log on to Twitter and hashtag your votes. It has to be before the start of each show day so we can actually track them and see whether or not you guys can catch up and beat my analysts as well as StatsBot.
We use that
Later
word
tonight,
very
it is time
loosely.
for our match of the week, and as the Stone Cold Killers of Vitality are looking to take on the powerhouse of Origen.
It's important for us next week to actually win against Vitality because they are contenders for the top spots.
I don't really feel like they should beat us in any sense at all, and if we play our game, we're just gonna take the 2-0.
We'll always aim for more. And if it's this split or next split or in 1 year, Origen will lift the cup.
They are not emotional at all. My guys are stone cold killers.
You are guaranteed a hype matchup because you know that both these teams want that win at all costs.
Well, let's see who is going to win later today. Frosk has been judged, and she is the weakest link, so she's gone. She's going to get ready for the cast, and that means I have brought in another UK duo to join here. It is Aaron Medic-Chamberlain. Welcome to Ready Check.
Thank you very much, Anne Robinson. It's very kind of you to welcome me to Ready Check.
Let's talk about this matchup very quickly because Vitality, they smashed Misfits last week. They're looking to prove themselves as a top contender. I think they've made that first step already.
Yes.
And if they can obliterate OG, it's another strong appearance.
A big adaptation from week 1 to week 2. G2 for Vitality, the fact they were able to play so successfully around their bottom lane, and they were able to have such a confident snowball, to me feels like a bit of a return of the Vitality of 2018.
And on the other side of the rift, we have Origen, who are struggling no end at the moment. 5 deaths at the 15-minute mark on average in their games. We talked about that earlier. They really have to bounce back, because at the moment they look like the prodigal sons who came back to the league, but really haven't come back to play.
Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult matchup for Origen based on their Week 2 performance. Let's see what they can do. You guys at home, if you would like to check out Caboshard, he will be hosting a POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2 that will start the moment the game loads in. So check that out just a little bit later today.
Well, today we are going to see patch 9.2 hit the rift, and with it a slew of changes that are going to alter the landscape of professional play. Starting off with our S-tier picks. Nerfs to Urgot, Aatrox and Galio mean that their priority in the pick ban is going to fall off slightly. I don't expect to see them completely fall out of the meta. Picks like Galio still provide a huge amount of teamfight presence, so don't be surprised if we see the Colossus move his way down towards the supporting role. Now, next up, jungle changes. Everyone loves a jungle change, and jungle experience from all camps scales slower and caps much lower in 9.2. This means that junglers can't rely on getting all of their resources from the jungle. Alongside a nerf to challenging smite, junglers will have to weigh up the risks of playing for the early game and getting those ganks off. Expect to see tank and utility junglers like Gragas, Sejuanis, or the Zacs of the world rise up in priority once again. Now finally, let's talk about Baron and tower changes. On patch 9.1, the average time for taking Baron to finishing a game in the LEC was 6 minutes and 9 seconds, the fastest it's ever been by over a minute. Those turrets melted. Now to try and make games a little bit harder to close out in a single push, patch 9.2 has taken some power away from those buffed up Flexius minions early on and caused them to scale up a lot slower into the late game. Added to Inhibitor and Nexus towers having more armor and magic resist early in the game, I expect to see a lot more action on the Rift and it to be tougher for teams to finish out games. Now those are the big changes on 9.2. Expect to see a little bit more variation in drafts, some utility-focused junglers coming back, and more comebacks from teams that fall behind.
And I think that point is the one I resonate the most with. Really like your summary there, Medic, because the game slowing down, I think, will be really important moving forward in the meta. You asked earlier things like G2, how will they be able to adapt? Will snowballing be the same? I think some of these changes will start that transition as bot lane has become slightly stronger, roaming becomes a little weaker, and I really like that. Do I like that the game's slowing down? I don't know, but I think
the question is, how much does it impact the draft? Because this will add maybe a couple minutes to gameplay. We need to see how it plays out today, but the majority of the picks should remain unchanged.
Except there's one. You may have seen it over in the LCK,
what
but there was also a buff.
If it says
Jarvan
Nocturne.
support maybe making his way
why is it
to the
surprising,
LEC.
Vegas? How did it work in LCK?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail.
Just quickly, because there's one key facet.
But it now goes AP Jarvan, and it's really fun to watch. Hopefully we get to see it today. I don't know if we will, but I know we've seen it in the LCK already. He got buffed this patch as well, didn't he, Medic? So I think it could make an appearance.
Okay, hold that thought. AP Jarvan, I want to see it. Let's see if any of the teams do it today in the LEC. Look, the first teams on stage are SK Gaming and G2, and just before we talk about the matchup, let's see what G2 Perkz had to say earlier today.
Hi everyone, Laure here, and I'm joined with Perkz ahead of their game against SK today. Thank you for joining me. You'll be playing against SK Gaming today. Last week you had a bit of a hard time against XL. You almost lost the game to them. What would you need to do today to avoid doing these mistakes again?
Well, the game was going really good for us until like 10 minutes. We were tricky up in laning phase, and we just made a bad call to dive, and the game went downhill from there for a bit. And it was even fine after that. We just kept doing the game by willing to fight against their teamfight comp. And then when we realized that we should not fight them straight up 5-5, just like that, then we started winning the game. So I think we just have to be more mindful of our winning condition in the game and play chill.
Chill, according to your strategy. You seem to have something in mind. Everybody is saying that you have the edge over SK today. Let's take a step back for a bit. If you were in SK's head, what would you have to do to take G2 down?
Well, if I was in SK's head, I would probably not have many choices to take G2 down because I don't really see a clear weakness. I would mostly hope that they int and then capitalize on their mistakes and then take G2 down. But yeah, straight up, it's going to be really hard for them.
So if you avoid making the same mistakes you did last week, you will be good, as you mentioned. Last question here. You were with G2 the time SK got relegated out of the LCS. Does this game have some kind of special flavor to you today?
Well, since I qualified for LCS by taking down SK, it's kind of nice to see like an older name. But in general, not too much because the players are all different, so I don't really have any connection with any of the players. But every game I play, I take it the same. If it's against SK or Fnatic, I just want to win, so yeah.
Well, thank you for your words and good luck, obviously, on the first game. And for more on this game, let's send it back to the desk.
And of course, for Perkz, maybe not the most emotional connection taking down SK, but for the owner of G2 Esports, Ocelot, relegating his former team, I'm sure would have stuck with him. I got to go back. In order for SK to win, Perkz is like, well, in SK's head, they have to hope G2 int. Maybe play a little loose, fast and loose. I mean, it's tough.
That's my solo queue mentality, right? When you're 0-6 down, it's like, okay, every lane is feeding. Let's just hope that the enemy ints. But from what we've seen from G2 thus far, hoping they int is a very, very unlikely thing to happen.
It's always a challenge. It's great to hear from Perkz as well. And it's just, I love the confidence too, right? He's like, well, I guess if I was the enemy, the only way I could see it is if they messed up. And from Perkz' perspective, it's like, but we never mess up. So they don't have any, I guess G2 is unbeatable.
I think Perkz has a short-term memory because I remember his Draven game, so there's some opportunities there. But, I mean, this is a David versus Goliath matchup. This is, you know, 4-time champions G2 with the super team.
Isn't it always David versus Goliath when you fight G2, though?
I mean, maybe this year it probably is, especially because of just the superpowers. You know, they are insanely strong and insanely talented.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second there, Trevor. I actually think this game is the most David versus Goliath we've seen. SK have 90 games in pro EU top tier level. G2 have 990 games at the top level. That's a massive discrepancy.
So that's professional games for each of the respective players on the stage.
Yes. Sorry, the players, yes.
Unbelievable. 10 times the amount. It's unscalable. So, look, G2, they can pick where they want to win, how they want to win, how they want to attack you. Vedius, where are some of the strengths and the tools that G2 can employ to allow Perkz to be so confident in the pre-game?
So we mention it almost every single week, but a large part of it is to do with their drafting. They have a wide selection of options in terms of what they can pick. And if we just look at some of the examples on their board, you can see in their first week, they drafted the extremely obnoxious Jay Zoe Carthus comp. You get hit by a single skill shot, then you're going to die. They also then went for an early game snowball comp versus XL, which is a little shaky, but again, they were able to pull it off. And then versus Rogue, they went for something completely different again, the Protect the Caps composition with the Irelia and the Karma top.
I really like the Rogue composition because this was into a Karthus jungle. So when you consider the shielding options and the survivability tools for Requiem, there's simply no way for that Karthus to get rolling.
And when you look at every single one of those comps, the key standout, the keystone for me is Caps in that mid lane. We thought maybe G2 were taking a gamble, putting Perkz into the AD carry role, bringing Caps in. He has been consistently the best player in our league and probably the best player Europe has ever seen.
Oh, that's a bold statement. I'm hard-pressed to argue against you. I mean, I called him the Spring Split MVP. Let's turn our attention to the other side of the rift, of course, SK Gaming. Now, they're coming into this matchup as definitely the underdogs. SK, they've had a good start to the Spring Split. They returned to the stage. They're currently sitting at 2 wins, 2 losses. Now, for a new squad, I see some positives, and I see some areas of improvement, shall we say. So Vedius, turns to you. You know, what else can this team do if they don't manage to get ahead? Because that's the only way I've seen them win games.
Yeah, unfortunately for SK, it seems that a lot of their wins come from when they play to their game plan. When they come in well prepared, they execute the early game effectively, and then they transition into a solid mid game. That is when we see a very, very good SK that take down surprising opponents, like the likes of Fnatic in week 1, right? However, it does feel that when they don't get their game plan going and when things don't mesh together, they get a little bit chaotic, they get a little desperate, and sometimes they don't make the smartest moves, which end up backfiring against them very heavily. And I think that's just a big experience difference for them, given that you have 3 of the former 5 Mad Liners players on this roster. They don't have that experience yet, and you already talked about it earlier, Medic. There's such a big disparity in game experience that they're not quite there.
But talking about the game plan for SK, it's pretty bread and butter what they want to do every single game as well. It's all about Selfmade, getting ahead, being able to go towards that top lane, go towards that bot lane, get those consistent ganks off. And so I would like to see him do this again. Yes, you can read it.
I want to see him ganking top less, though.
No, gank top, gank bot. It works for them every time.
He literally, like clockwork, goes top lane at 4 minutes. We were casting their game versus XL, and we were like, expect he's coming top at level 4, and yeah, he was every single time.
Okay, so let's step back. We know the game plan for SK. We know that they've succeeded twice and not succeeded twice with that game plan. We're very nearly jumping into picks and bans. So how does SK step up to G2 Esports? Can they just use the same strategy, or would you like to see them maybe play around Pyrenean in the mid lane, mix something up and try catch G2 off guard?
So for me, what I would love to see is Selfmade getting the better of Jankos. For the large part of the split so far, Jankos hasn't really been involved in trying to carry his lanes because his lanes just kind of win by themselves. Yeah. But that also means that you often have pushing lanes that can be taken advantage of. So a lot of my eyes fall onto Selfmade. And if you want to gank top, then fine. Putting Wonder behind is not a terrible thing. But it would be nice if they tried playing around their mid lane. What happens when you do turn Pyrion into a carry and also shut Caps down?
I actually think there's an argument to never go mid lane at all. Like, Caps is going to 2v1 you 9 times out of 10. Like, he's just that good, right? Go top, get that first gank off, and then just hard camp bot. We've seen Perkz be put behind before. We talked about the Draven game. If you can just totally shut down one of the key components of G2 as an organization, never mind as a team, maybe you can shut G2 down.
It's going to be a really difficult task. SK Gaming standing up against G2 Esports. Now, before we start the week, let's get to know SK's rookie jungler, who tonight takes a look down, who looks to take down another European champion. Welcome to the 2019 LEC Spring Split.
Selfmade, he just seemed to be someone extremely talented. He was somebody who really wants to beat other people, but has the confidence as well that he can do it.
I always dreamed of living from doing this. I started playing League of Legends when I was 12 years old. I knew that I want to be part of something bigger.
El Clásico, that is the memory of what SK and Fnatic once were, of times when both organizations dominated esports with some of the most memorable plays ever.
Our whole preparation for this week was versus Fnatic. We just tried our best, no matter what we're gonna pick in Champions Select.
And it'll be up to this new SK to show us if they can live up to their enormous legacy.
I also come from bad neighborhood, so that for sure affected me. Whenever I go on stage, I feel much more calm than even when I play scrims.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as Fnatic take on SK Gaming. World of down to 200, first blood secured. SK Gaming are not buckling under any pressure, and they are playing exceptionally well.
Sure, when I play on stage, I'm the one who tries to calm people down.
Guys, like, stop my communication, okay?
Yeah, relax. Just to buy some time, Crown Shot comes in as well, and Hilly goes down. SK are continuing to pull ahead. We have a dramatic pause.
When the break happened, I was only waiting for them to unpause the game, because we knew that we were gonna win this game. When they told us that it would be remake, I was actually kinda laughing because it was my first game in LEC versus world finalists from the last year.
Fnatic trying to come back into this game, utilizing their mobility, looking for picks, but it might be Hylissang that gets picked instead.
Oh man, Hylissang's been killed. Get channeled up, and look at this, Hylissang's already dead.
But still, very close game compared to the game before.
Fnatic get 3 quick kills in the mid lane. Well, he's got perfect execution available to him. Here comes Pyrion. Flash over. SK Gaming stopped the Baron.
When I found the opportunity to engage on Reckless, I just tried it and it worked out.
But he decides not to follow through with the resonating strike. That's a stun on the Reckless. The dive forward. Selfmade and a true shot barrage. Selfmade, you are a god.
That was insane from Selfmade.
Finish. SK Gaming taking down Fnatic, the world finalists.
For me, after winning versus them, it felt like it was something really special. LEC feels much different than LVP. It feels much more serious, and I'm like proud of being there. Nemesis told me that he's gonna be the one hugging me after the game, and in the end I was the one who hugged him, so we're winning versus Fnatic. We knew that we can beat everyone.
He has this one thing that he's very sure, which is League of Legends. His pursuit for winning games is definitely something that, you know, makes Selfmade.
Selfmade, what a way to open your career in the LEC. Not only beating world champions, or almost world champions, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm thinking this year, almost world champion Fnatic, but also sniping Reckless to end the game. Fantastic. Sadly, it does not get easier for him today, going up against the monsters that are G2, what looks to be a potentially undefeated super team. I think a lot of people are skeptical about.
Do you remember what I said when we had our pitch about like who is Selfmade? How do I get exciting for SK?
Yes.
What did I say? You lied, it's fine. I said that he was baby Yankos. I said, get excited about Selfmade. I've watched him in the Spanish League. I've watched him on Mad Lions. I think he's incredibly talented, and he reminded me a lot of Yankos in his high days. So now we get to see baby Yankos versus actual Yankos and the super villains that are G2.
And I'm ready to see it. Perkz and Man's, of course, going to be incredibly crucial. First game we're going to see in the LEC on 9.2. Now,